So mobility, why is it important today? The trend has really been mobile first, cloud first in today's ecosystem. And we have seen a shift for business leaders over time to focus in on time and cost saving capabilities. And they are known to do this through being able to manage everything remotely. That has been the premise for us to design a mobility framework over the last year. And it has been based on direct customer feedback and basically a demand we've seen within the market on limitations with what currently sits there. We wanted to just briefly go through what the difference between mobile and mobility really is, because it seems that these two terms have been convoluted over the years. Mobile really is a nuts bolts infrastructure. You can think of it as actually your mobile application. Mobility, though, in essence, is how everything ties together. So for example, how our mobile application or others may tie to Dynamics AX, how they may tie through another security portal to get there. So today's theme really is on mobility and not on mobile, and we'll be going through that as well. So just to get started, a couple poll questions just to field kind of where the audience sits. And I'll launch the first one right now. We'll give it about 30 seconds to get a poll on this. So I see time and expense, workflow, and a few others. Some server management. Great. And we'll just launch one more regarding when you expect to upgrade to Dynamics 365. We see within 1 year, 2 years, handful of people over 4 years. Okay, great. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Andrew Daughtry, our technical account specialist, and he'll take it over from here. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Amir, for walking us through our company and our services. That brief overview about mobility versus mobile. And on that note, so what was available to people with AX 2009 and Dynamics AX 2012 as far as mobility options? Like, how could they bring their AX to mobile devices or wherever they needed to be? So one basic way was Enterprise Portal. It was a website that could connect people to their expenses, to basic forms that were made available within the AX framework. Obviously, pros are that it's device agnostic, it uses the web, it's obviously supported by all web browsers. Updates and deployments are simpler because it's based on forms within AX. Security is driven from AX, so it's the users that can access Enterprise Portal are given security roles and permissions within AX, so it's configurable that way. Cons are Enterprise Portal is based off of a Microsoft SharePoint website, and it's sort of a legacy product that Microsoft has since dropped in Dynamics 365 because 365 is fully browser capable. That's where AX runs currently, so it wasn't needed anymore. So Microsoft clearly did not view Enterprise Portal as sort of the future of reaching AX in a mobile way. Obviously, because it's a web portal, there's no offline capability. You cannot connect to Enterprise Portal and store AX information and data without having to connect through the internet to the website. And because of that, you obviously have limited functionality per device for accessing thumbprint scanner, accessing the camera on the phone for taking pictures of things. So there's the trade-offs when you use Enterprise Portal. And you're obviously stuck with how Enterprise Portal sort of looks and functions. That's just how Microsoft designed the forms. Your second option, and this is sort of the big one, is the Application Integration Framework, which Microsoft introduced with AX 2009 and expanded in Dynamics AX 2012. And other people might know this as the document service. And this is a way that Microsoft used to expose AX business logic to external integration, or if people want to like turn AX essentially into a service, they would use the AIF services, which hosts an endpoint, which then can be reached to pull and push data from AX. Pros there, obviously you have a lot more control over what information you push and pull into AX. You can basically access any class that you turn into a service, use your company's business logic to drive that interaction. Security is enforced through Windows Communication Foundation, Active Directory, and role-based AX security. So all of your security roles and permissions are enforceable through this framework. The cons are to get an app running using this framework, or really any third-party integration, it's a lot more development heavy, whereas Enterprise Portal was mostly form-driven, that you can quickly push and pull different forms onto the portal for functionality's sake. If you want to make an integration using AIF, you have to have a developer build the services and then build the app that will connect to those services. So it's a lot more complex a skill set that is needed to make apps that utilize the AIF framework. But you'll find that's just what we did. So we took a lot of the headache out of this process. But this is really the most robust way of connecting apps to AX 2012 and 2009. Moving on, we have, so the first, I guess, big apps that came that Microsoft wanted to showcase how you would use that AIF framework to connect to AX. And this is specifically for Dynamics AX 2012. I believe R2 is what these Windows Store apps were originally made to connect to. And part of their product, so what Microsoft created is they created an expenses app, an approvals app, a timesheets app, and a production floor app that were all made for the Windows 8 store. So if you had a Windows 8 phone, which I'm sure many in our audience all had Windows phones, but that's what Microsoft wanted to make these apps for, or if they had a Windows 8 operating system, obviously the store through their desktop would also be able to have these apps. And so this was Microsoft's first showcase of how you can connect to AX. And the idea being is they want to show people that this capability is there so that other people could make their own apps using the same kind of framework. So what is that framework? Three components to it. It starts from the AIF services, which if you looked at 2012 R2, you will actually see existing expense, timesheet, and approvals and production floor AIF services for pulling in the information. Microsoft provides, and this is the big one, a connector for mobile applications. And basically this acts as a middle tier towards connecting the Windows 8 Store app, Windows Phone app, with the back-end AOS that is carrying out the business logic to AX itself. Without that connector, obviously the data lives within your corporate network, and you wouldn't want to expose your corporate network and the data on it without some serious security in the middle of that, which is what the connector is handling. And we'll go more into what that connector is and the security behind that in a few slides down the road. But this is sort of the start of what mobile looked like in AX 2012. Microsoft's next app was a Dynamics AX 2012 mobile app. So this combined a few of the previous apps, the expenses and timesheet apps specifically, into one more general app. So this one was available for Windows Phone, iOS, Android. It was developed in HTML and JavaScript, so it was portable to basically anything since it was under the hood a web app. And so if any person has 2012 R2 and up, they can look into the iOS store right now or Android Google Play Store and find this app and download it. They would, of course, still need the same Microsoft mobile connector installed on their AX system to actually make use of it, because without that connector, there's no connecting to their business data. They also need an Azure account, so there's a whole bunch of setup steps just to get this kind of app working. Same with these apps that we can certainly link to. If people have questions of how do they connect these Microsoft products to their own system, Microsoft provides white papers for how those connections work. You have to have ADFS running. You have to have Azure namespace, and we'll go over more of those for our own app because we had to go through the same process, just not using Microsoft's proprietary technology that unfortunately was not flexible, that we couldn't change. So we thought, let's make our own. And so that is a good transition into how we made our own. So the AX Admin app, where did it start? We had customer feedback from one of our customers who wanted an app. They thought specifically they wanted to have direct-to-store delivery in terms of their truck drivers wanted an app to be able to track where deliveries were going. And at the original time of that request, we didn't have the experience to make an app. We figured, well, we saw these apps that Microsoft made, and we thought, well, Microsoft did them, how hard could they be, right? So we said yes to that request. We thought we were skilled enough. We know AX backwards and forwards, in every which way. How difficult it can be, I'm sure we can pull this off. Little did we know that it was not so simple, just because, as we originally thought, we figured Microsoft's framework was extendable, that we could add whatever functionality we wanted to it and quickly churn out an app much in the same way that Microsoft's expenses, timesheets, approvals app worked. But we figured that we couldn't do that. We also looked at the market and saw that if anyone looked on the iOS Store, App Store, Google Play Store, or even Windows Store, there's not a whole lot of Dynamics AX apps out there that will target different market segments that people might see a need for. And we thought, let's make a framework that can easily be built upon, that no matter what request going forward, we won't be caught with that same request of we want a mobile app without the knowledge and know-how how to do it. So we built that framework to allow for that. So going into the admin app itself, we call it AX Admin, based on the same underlying framework that Microsoft's companion apps are. It starts with the AIF services that we've built that connect to the various tables that you'll see that the admin app pulls data from, batch jobs, AOS, user tables. So we hit a lot of different areas in AX with the AIF services. We've created a middle tier API listening for messages from the front end to relay them to AX. That's our own connector, which I have a slide that shows what that looks like later on. But again, works much the same way that Microsoft's did. And then we have the iOS native application. So that's the image that you're seeing to the right. That's what the login screen of the app looks like. And during the demo, we'll show what that app, how it functions later on. So part of this app, and Microsoft's connector and mobile apps work the same way, 3 layers of security. We have Active Directory Federated Services combined with Azure Access Control Service used for identity authentication. So what does that mean? So Active Directory, and I'll go back to this slide in a bit, but the whole idea is your data lives within a corporate network. I'm sure it's firewalled up as far as it can. You want to secure your business data. Obviously, we could have hosted our endpoints. Why even create a middle tier API that ferries information back and forth between AX and the app. We could have just hosted the AIF services on a public endpoint. Well then, much like Enterprise Portal, we're exposing your data to the internet in a sense, and the internet comes with its pros and cons of security, but one of its unfortunate side effects is that internet websites are not as secure as they can be, and it exposes your internal data. So how do you get at it? And that's what ADFS and Azure allows us to do, where we create using Azure Service Bus, which is what creates that exposed entry point, essentially. We'll connect to ADFS, which is a authentication schema which lives on your corporate network. So you use that to validate the user that logs into the app, which checks ADFS as a valid claim, goes to Azure to make sure that it has a proper web token, which then checks that with the certificate on the Aos system and makes sure that whole handoff is valid. If a different user try logging into the app that isn't with AX, they just won't be able to do it. It won't allow them to log into the app. And so this way it completely maintains all sorts of compliance standards in terms of connecting to your business data. Going back to the previous slide for security, as I mentioned before, it's fully security role driven, so people that shouldn't have access to the app, say you are a AX admin, right? So that's the kind of person that would use this app, but maybe you shouldn't be able to turn on and off Windows services. That's a fairly IT admin driven functionality. Well, within AX, you can turn off the ability to affect Windows services or even see them. We've made that fully customizable within AX to control who has permission to do what in the app. So if you don't want a specific user being able to see the AOSs that appear in the AX, or be able to set them to draining or accepting clients, which is functionality we'll demo when we start running through the app, that can be turned on and off from AX. We want the experience to be fully driven by AX itself to show what people have the ability to do. And then finally, there's device level security. So thumbprint login, right? If you don't want to remember your password, enter in a thumbprint and you'll easily be able to log into AX admin. Obviously you can change your password, and all that's driven from AX itself. Whatever your user credentials are, that usually logs you into your AX system. Is what logs into the AX admin. There's other security features of the app. The data cache, so the amount of data that's cached on the device to speed up information. Obviously, if you have 5,000 records that are showing up in the app, it might take a minute or so to load. The app functions pretty quickly, and again, during the demo, you'll see that. But obviously, you don't want to wait 2-3 minutes every time you load the app, so it caches some of that locally. So the next time while you're within a session of the app, screens will load much quicker the next time you load them. But that cache gets cleared after 10 or so minutes, and that's configurable within the app settings. Also, if you idle for a configurable amount of time within the app, much like a banking app, it will log you back out, go back to the login screen. So you have to log in again. So if your phone's sitting out in public and you're not touching it for a while, a random person can't steal your phone and then log into AX. It will log out eventually on its own. So now that we've covered security of the app and briefly talked about how the app looks, what is the design philosophy of AX admin? And really any apps that we plan on making going forward, regardless of their particular function. The idea is that we're going for is sort of a 3-click approach, or 3-tap approach, if you want to say it that way. You start with the most critical information that the user needs to know. We call that the dashboard view. So upon immediately logging into the app, you're immediately thrust into the first dashboard screen. In this screenshot, that would be the Aos screen, and during the demo you'll see this, which gives you immediate information about what AOSs that you have are currently up. So say you have 5 different AOSs that you've connected to your production server that are handling different particular functions. Maybe one's a batch server, maybe one's a batch AOS, maybe one's your primary AOS. Whatever the reason is, that would be able to tell you, okay, 3 of these AOSs are down for whatever reason, or not down, but draining. Maybe they were, maintenance was happening. You need to take them down just to do that maintenance. So that will tell you right from the first login screen what that looks like. And then, so you want to drill into, and for this particular example, I have unread messages. So in AX, you might be aware of the notifications feature that tells you various things. Maybe you have something to approve, maybe a batch job failed, whatever you've configured AX to send you personal alerts for. They'll show up on this screen. So this will just give me a quick indication of, well, I have 8 alerts. What are those alerts? I press the that whole top section. It shows me the master list of alerts. The little blue dot indicates that those are unread alerts. So I can quickly filter. Say that was a list of 1,000 alerts. For some reason, I was not diligent, and the whole pile of alerts are now filling this list. I can quickly filter to unread. That's the little bottom there showing, and again, we'll walk through this more in detail during the demo. But okay, I see one of these alerts here. I want to see more information about what it says. It just gives me a little summary. I click on the alert. I then have a detail page. And so that detail gives me the fine granularity of when it was created, who created it, so what kind of alert it was, whether it came from as just a general action or information type alert, if it was a major like warning kind of alert, and then the message itself. And that's true of system exceptions, workflow history, all the various notification types that I'll demo later. And the idea being, again, we want to quickly transition the user in as few steps as possible between the pretty dashboard UI look to just a list of information to finally the detail of what they want to know. All right, so as I talked about before, Microsoft has a connector that's not flexible, that's just for approvals, expenses, timesheets, and production floor for the apps that they created and the mobile app they created after that one. We figured, well, we want to make this AX admin app because we see a benefit to the market there in terms of managing their AX health. Well, how do we extend Microsoft's connector? We can't, so let's make our own. And so you see there, flexible configuration. We can connect this connector to any AOS. It can be from a dev, test, or production server. It cannot be all at once, but I can install this connector on each of those places, and then through different Azure service buses, which I could go more into detail if people are curious about that whole Azure service bus connection point. It's basically Azure's hosting the endpoints that this connector sort of publishes, that then the data gets brought back to AX through. But if you have different service buses, you can connect them to different servers. And this connector allows you to specify which of those service buses that you're connecting to and which AOS you're connecting to. We've built this to be supported, so where Microsoft built their apps specifically for AX 2012 R2 and up, we've built ours to support our 2012 RTM. And the importance of that is for people that are on 2012 RTM, and I don't know if we want to pull the audience in terms of what versions they're using, or if people want to say that when we're done this particular talk, what versions they're on. But if people who use RTM will know that there are no data partitions. That was a thing added later into AX 2012. And so our R3 version of the connector and the admin app does use data partitions. So you can change those and that's compliant with whatever your particular business need might have been to use data partitions. And as I explained, so we've created a framework here using this connector that's easily modifiable. If we wanted to add or remove endpoints, say the particular customer, they don't need or care about user management. They don't want to see enabled and disabled users, which I'll show in the app can do. Well, we can easily with this connector remove that endpoint. It's no longer published, and so that removes that functionality from the app. Or say they want to add more functionality. They have a customization to their customer table, their online users. They want to be able to track more information. We can easily add that functionality and publish it to Azure so that the app can see it. So that's the whole point of this framework. We can change it to do what the client their best needs are. And this goes down to AX. So before I said we created AIF services, we've also created certain customizations to AX itself to allow the admin app to function and be as flexible as it is. As I described earlier, we want this fully driven from your AX instance. It's not driven from the admin app. The AX itself drives what you see. So we've created a custom form called admin app, where you can specify Windows services that you want the admin app to track, because again, Windows services are fairly powerful. You don't want to stop a major operating system Windows service without the right people having access to do that. If you might not want to track all Windows services on the app, just because that's not necessary to do. You only might want to track your reporting service, the Aos service on other machines, just because you wouldn't want to stop the Aos that the admin app is currently using, which technically you would be able to add to the admin app, but again, you can control who has the ability to see what and start and stop what. And admin app parameters form, which is where I explained earlier from an earlier slide. If I go back to it, right here. So when I said custom user permissions limit access to what app feature, that's where you would specify, from the admin app parameters, who has access to be able to start and stop what, or see what screens, all that kind of stuff. You'd be able to track. Also, we've added the ability to select which batch jobs you want to show up in the admin app. Again, for your particular business needs, maybe you want to track every batch job by default, or maybe you only want to track a few critical ones that you know will run every day. We give users that kind of flexibility, and you'll see the little checkbox there, sync with admin app in that picture. So check that, and then it will start showing up in the admin app. And now I guess it's time for the demo itself. A quick rundown, so some of the features of the admin app, and again you'll see this when I do the demo. Aos management, accept, train Aos users. You can track user licenses, so how many licenses do you have with AX? How many licenses are the users currently using? Manage batch jobs, so I can change the status of batch jobs, much like you can in AX. Again, see if they're running. You can see what batch jobs have failed or parts of a batch job that might have failed. I can manage Windows services, so start and stop them, see what their current status is. Notifications, so check user alerts, system exceptions, workflow history, database log, AIF queue. So the app itself uses the AIF service queue. So if there's a problem with the admin app somewhere in terms of logging messages and you have that turned on, the AIF queue turned on, that might show up there, and so you'd be able to see those messages in the admin app itself. SQL trace log and email sending status. So you tried sending an email in AX, you want to track, is it sending, is there a problem there? You can be able to track that in the admin app. User management, I can track all the online users and just all users of AX, enable and disable users. So if a user if an employee left the company and I want to disable their access remotely, I can do that. I can view the security roles that are applied to every user. And then finally, data management. So specifically, the database log and SQL tracement log, if you turn those log tables on, they can fill up very, very quickly. And so that is a potential performance drain on your AX system. Maybe you don't even realize that your database log table and SQL statement table are on. So you might find that there's several thousand entries in those tables. So you can clear those logs right from the admin app. And now it is time, now that I've mentioned the demo enough, for the demo. So if I get the little mouse thing out of the way, this is my phone itself. Here's the admin app. I'm using my thumb to move around, so showcasing that is in fact the admin app. You can see here that immediately Touch ID, so if I want to, I can enter in the password into this demo system here, or I can just say Touch ID, recognizes my thumbprint. So unless someone chops off my thumb, it's fairly safe. So the very first screen it goes to is the Aos Dashboard Screen. So just from immediate glance here, I can see I have 2 alive AOSs running. I can see that I have 1 active user that's currently on that machine. And just so for people that might be confused here, when I log into this demo AX system from the admin app, I'm not logging in as an active user on the machine. Technically, it creates what's like sort of a thread, worker thread that is tracked in AX. If I went to AX, I can see how many worker threads are running, but the admin app is not actually tracking that a worker thread is accessing AX. This is tracking that I have logged into that demo system behind the scenes and that is the one user that is on. I can quickly see what user is on. So online users, I actually can see that my admin app is, and you can see the worker thread there. That's this logged in session. I can see details about this is the user that's currently logged onto the system, when they logged on. So again, quick access. I just went right from the dashboard here. I can see what users online. Maybe a scenario is I'm doing maintenance and I need to tell this 1 or a few users that are on my dev system maybe that it's going to be taken down for a data refresh or something like that. Well, now I know who to contact, or right from this app I can actually directly disable that user, or I can, for instance, that user left the company, I can kick them off AX permanently so they can't log back in. And so I can quickly check how many AOSs I have. I have 2 AOSs on this particular system. This one has 5 users that are active on it. I can set it to drain. That's that little button there. I won't press it at the moment, but if I set it to drain, I had no new users who would be able to log on to it. And current users, obviously they will stay on, but if they idle for too long, then they'll be told that they're going to get kicked off. I can quickly check inbound ports to this. So again, this is for all your, if you go to the AIF inbound port screen in system administration, you'll see all the various inbound ports there that might be on your system. You can quickly see information about individual ones here. I can say if I had 10 AOSs, and so these 2 names are fairly close, right? What if I wanted to just search for the AOS that I had in mind? So if I knew the exact name of the AOS, I can start typing it in, and then they'll filter on that name. Again, I can also filter up the top there. If I had any AOSs that were set to drain, they would show up in this little filter at the top. So we've made it very intuitive to move around, filter based on your particular needs. And if you have a lot of content there, this makes it easy. Quickly search for what I want if there's more than fit on this screen that I can see, or filter to reduce the number that way. And like I said before, I can check license count. So there's 10 enterprise users that license user count, but there's 365 actual users on the machine. So obviously that 365 users cannot all be licensed, be using 10 of the enterprise user licenses, so it just gives you an indication of how many users are on your system and how many licenses that you've purchased, and also what kind of licenses, and there's a breakdown there. All right, so moving on. So now we go to batch jobs, and so you can see just moving from screen to screen how quickly it loads, right? So that when I moved to batch jobs for that previous screen there, you saw the little wheel spin up. That was contacting AX, so that wasn't initially cached. It had to contact AX to get this data, and now that I go back to the Aos screen and back to batch jobs, it shows up immediately. That's the cache I was talking about. So if I just let this sit for a configurable amount of time, which then this brings up another thing, all screens are, I can quickly get to the main navigation of the app, so I'm not anywhere more than one click away from any given screen of the AX admin app. So I can go into the settings here. I can clear local cache just to, for instance, if I cleared that, go back. Yes, I want to clear local cache, so just making sure you know what you're doing. Go back to the batch job screen. It goes back to the little wheel. So again, you make it as secure as possible. If you don't want your data sitting on the app for any prolonged amount of time, you can get rid of it. You can clear it. And then it's just pulling in the data directly from AX again. So from this screen, you'll notice 3 columns here: current jobs, history errors, and task errors. What does that mean? So say I ran had a batch job that was handling checks being sent to payroll checks being sent to the bank, our employee payroll, and we had 1,000 employees at our company, large company, and say 3 of those checks, for some reason, this batch job ran over the weekend, and 3 of those checks failed. So the batch job itself probably didn't fail. It probably completed successfully. But how would you know that 3 checks in that batch job failed unless you configured all kinds of alerts in AX to notify you when you log back into, went to your desktop, or maybe you emailed it, so you have to open your laptop, connect to your VPN to your corporate network, and dig into the batch job table and the task and log from within the batch job table. So there's sort of a 4, 5, 6-step process of finding out that 3 of 1,000 checks didn't send. Or maybe you don't even find out. Maybe it takes one of those 3 check holders and your employees finding out that they didn't get paid that week, and so they're angrily yelling at you, at whoever's in charge, I didn't get paid. Well, so from here I could track, well, so I see this particular batch job, and let's play pretend here, there was an error in one of the batch jobs. So I can quickly drill down. So this tells me, just from the dashboard view, well, there was a task error. So one of the tasks that was running failed, even though the batch job itself might have ended. I quickly go into that. It tells me, if I view the task, that's the log message. So if a particular check failed, this would tell me exactly who the user's, the specific check that failed was, where it failed, the same kind of information that you'd have to dig 4 forms deep into AX, I can quickly get to from, 4 tabs. Batch job, I can see right from the top here, the list of batch jobs. I can filter if there was a whole lot of jobs in this list and withholding. Again, this is filterable at the top here. So say that there's a list of 1,000 things here. I can quickly see there's 2 errors that happened in the batch jobs. One was an error that canceled the entire batch job itself. The other, the batch job completed, but there was a task error. I can quickly get to it. And I can say I want to save this batch job to hit from it's running to the history. So, that's where you see history errors. So stuff that was saved to history might show up there. I can also change the status. So this particular job was in withholding, and much like AX, it obeys the same rules there. I can put this into waiting. I can cancel a running batch job. I can also track batch jobs that have ended. So that's fully trackable within the admin app. Going on to services. So again, talk about that we can track Windows services running on your AOS or different servers. So say I want to track the reporting server on my production system. So from a, again, bird's eye view, I can see, well, there's 3 running Windows services that I've configured in AX for the admin app to see. Obviously, there's a lot more than 3 Windows services on whatever server that I've connected this to, but I don't want to track 50-odd Windows services that aren't important to my business needs. A lot of those are just operating system services that are not necessary. So I add what services I want from AX. They show up here. I can see 3 of them are running. I see that 2 of the AOS services are here, and then the report server. Obviously, I do not want to stop the Windows service that this AOS for this AOS because the admin app will stop working. It needs that, so I'll go away from that one. And realistically, you probably don't want to add that to the admin app just in case, but again, you can turn off the ability to start and stop it. So then it just becomes a read-write scenario of I just want to see what is its status, but I can't be able to stop it. But say the report server was down. So for the sake of argument here, I press that button, and I clearly ignored the description, never stop this, but the point is, so now the SQL reporting server has been stopped. For people that are aware of how frustrating SSRS reporting server might be, maybe reports were running real slow, there was an issue with them, and I want to be able to quickly do the brute force, just start and stop it. Maybe that clears up the problem. Well, I can open the admin app, go to the reporting server that I've added through AX, and be able to start it. And so now it's started. SSRS reports should run smoothly now. I'll just say that now. There might still be problems on your reporting server side, but that's a topic for another day. That was able to start and stop this Windows service within seconds. And again, I can search if I had 30, 50 odd services showing up in this list. I can easily search for what I want. Going back, so notifications. Oops. So again, I talked about before with features here. I can track the various tables within AX, set email sending status. So I can see all these various emails have failed to send. Maybe the batch service, the batch job that handles sending emails out from AX was down, which would explain why these emails failed to send. It gives me a little brief explanation of what that email's contents were, who they were sent to, and then the status of the email. Another big thing with the app is we made a lot of these screens have these filters that can be applied to them. So before, where you saw a top filter, so this is sort of an overall filter of I can go through the various large parts of the functionality of this app. But within the email sending status, maybe I want to limit by just failed ones. Apply. Okay, most of these were failed. What if I don't care about failed? I just want to see sent ones. Apply. Oh, okay, so none of them sent. I now know that there was a big problem with the batch job that was handling sending out these emails. And that then points me, all right, so I saw all these emails fail. Let's go back to batch jobs. And if I had that email sending service or job added to the admin app, I can then drill down to that and see what the problem was there. So you can see one area of this admin app can then lead me to other areas which tell me where problems happen in my system. Whereas in AX, I'd have to dig around 5, 6, 7, 10 forms, behind the scenes just to pull up the same kind of information. So there's benefit here, even if I have AX open and I'm looking at it, just in terms of a efficiency standpoint. I might use the app just to move around these things a lot quicker, even if I have AX open in front of me. So again, user alerts. So I can track what are my unread messages, what are just all my messages. I can quickly search, so batch job, type in BAT, and I can see just the alerts that have to do with batch jobs there. Again, you can quickly move between the different sections. Users. So again, I can track all users within AX. You can see from the little graph there, I've disabled 4 users. So again, this could just be users that are no longer with your company. You don't want them to have access to AX anymore. So I can re-enable this user. Say, they were on administrative leave and I didn't want them to have access to AX, but now they're back, so let's add them back. Quickly, just one click, and that does the job. I can track what the security roles were attached to that user. I can see all the users with the system here that are enabled. I can directly call them. I can send an email to this user. This should open up whatever client is on your phone. And the phone button will obviously use your phone dialer. And so last, data management. I can go back and forth between SQL trace log and database log. I see that there is one record here, and again, there could be thousands of records here. Delete it. I've now cleared that log of records. So just a simple way of improving the performance of your system. And this particular functionality is probably the most flexible to change if you have a customization that you want to do performance tuning on different tables. Those can easily be added to this list, and we can clear any tables of data that are necessary to improve the performance of your AX implementation. So that goes through pretty much all the functionality of the app. Again, so going through the navigation here, all those things are accessible from one tap. Going through the settings again, so I can change the partition that this app is connected to. I can change the legal entity. So your company might have 30 different legal entities. I can quickly swap between there. Most of the data of this admin app is cross-company, just because of the nature of what tables that these connect to. But some things like database log, I believe, are specific to companies. So if you want to track different records in that table, you have to change legal entity. I can change how far back in time the admin app is storing or getting data from. So what if I only want to track data from the batch job or system exceptions table for a day? I change that. That will clear all the data from those other views to just stuff that happened within the last day. So you have some data security in terms of what shows up in the app from here. So maybe the admin app sees 1,000 records every day that you log in. This could limit how much information you see in the app. And again, timeout period. So if I want the admin app to log me out after 2 minutes or 10 minutes, it's configurable from here. Again, I can clear local cache. This is just pointing out what endpoints the admin app is using to connect to AX. So those are the middle tier endpoints that then connect to AIF services. And that should do it for the demo. If I go back to my slide deck here. Thanks, everybody.